Welcome, Dr. James Beckett, Sports Card Insights. I want to thank my sponsors, Topps, Panini, Upper Deck, Heritage Auctions, Huggins & Scott Auctions, Mike Stadium Sports Cards, Burbank Sports Cards, ComC.com, and Beckett Media, Beckett Grading, Beckett Authentication. So here's an episode for your listening enjoyment. Rich, you were very kind to let me know last week that a certain card shop had changed ownership. And because of that, the new owner was reorienting the shop and what it was going to emphasize. And they wound up putting an ocean of dollar box cards in the middle of the room. And so thank you very much for telling me about that. It was a lot of fun. I did go over there and you'd been there. And I think it'd been picked over for 2 weeks and I still had a great time.
I texted you when I was there and I said, you better come. And I found some amazing cards, even though it'd been picked over. I think part of it was because of how Nick's had evolved from what Nick and Debbie had done to what Mike, the owner who has since sold, had done. So a lot of the vintage people had left and I was just going to go there. I was actually hoping maybe I'd drop off some flyers for my card show. I didn't expect anything. Thanks to a project you had me work on, I had extra money in my pocket and I was very happy with my rate of return based on what I priced my items at, which leaves me a lot of flexibility if and when the next time I set up at a show or if and when the next time I sell out is.
There were a couple 100,000 cards there, dollar box cards. What percent did you get through?
I flew through it and there were certain things I didn't live through. So I tried to get through everything. I'm sure I missed a box or two, but I was flying because I'm only looking for certain things. You are more versatile in what you look for than I do.
Well, here's a hack. Okay. I think you and I can look at a monster box or a triple shoe or double shoe with eclectic boxes. You and I can very quickly tell where the pockets of vintage are because the cardboard looks different. We can also tell what is chrome or prism. They're thicker and shinier. And even standing on end, you can see the ultra modern cards. And I think you're leaning more toward vintage and I lean more toward the middle category.
I think that's very valid. I do lean more towards vintage because I don't need magnifying glasses or special glasses to know what I want to buy. I found a few and a couple of them are off grade. And I said, for $1, that was fine. 61 Topps high numbers. And a 61 Topps high number at $1, I don't really care. It could be writing on the back or it could be torn on the back. I'll still buy that card.
And you'll still do well with it.
And I'll still do well with it, even though the worst I would do is triple from 1 to 3, the $3 for a 10% of book for a common. And I'm okay with that. In reality, 2 types of cards. This is a sports card insight. It's always been this way. What are the 2 easiest types of cards to sell? The ones in great condition and the ones in the worst condition. It's the big middle class, which is the hardest to sell. You give me VGX, that becomes eye appeal, that becomes price point, that becomes a much harder way to deal than a really sharp card or a really bad card with physical damage.
You've got to scrutinize it. It's hard to describe it. One person's VG could be another person's X or good or fair. So I take your point on that. I will say this, when I was going through there, I did fine. And again, I'm just shocked. People are picking through it for 2 weeks and I still picked out a nice chunk. I'm still pulling 100 cards now, which is my standard, which is a lot of fun. Okay, here's my dilemma. And I almost texted you, but I thought, again, it's hard to describe. There were some off condition and miscut vintage cards. Now, I think it's not wise for you to buy them at $1. But at 50 cents or a quarter, you should have picked them all up.
It depends what years they are. If the 70s, probably not. But if they're 50s or 60s, yeah, probably go ahead.
60s. Anyway, there weren't that many, but I just noticed some, and I thought Rich probably passed on these. But there was some off condition and miscut in a way that you've got a partial showing of another card. There were some football cards, same thing. People just don't realize the quality control of Topps cards when they had no competition was not great.
Several years ago, on our friend Leon Lucky's Net 54 board, a run of collectors started really getting into the off-cut T206 cards. So at some point, the really off-cut cards are going to do something. My father was a vest pocket stamp and coin dealer in the 40s and 50s. And there was always a market for stamps and coins that were off cut like that. That market has never developed in cards yet, but I still suspect it may someday because there's less of them out there that are really miscut, which is an interesting thing. It's almost counterintuitive because not that people collect them necessarily, but it's a different way to collect. You probably wouldn't want your 55 Clemente rookie to be part of another card on the card, but somebody else may say, that's almost unique. I want that card.
It's not your fault and it's not my fault, but price guides cannot list those kinds of things unless it's a poor condition card. But if you had a half and half card, which some of the T206s are half one image, half another image, to me, that's really interesting. But you can't put that in a price guide. It's a one of one, but it's not priced like a one of one unless there's huge demand based on a player. It's like a printing anomaly.
And that's what I was saying with stamps and coins. The printing used to be something very desirable, which is why I think someday it will translate to cards. Maybe not in yours and mine lifetime, but someday.
The other corollary to that are wrong backs, upside down, wrong player, and all that. Again, it's how do you catalog those? Are they based on the player on the front, the information on the back? It could be mismatched sports even. You could have a football card with a baseball back. And again, those were intentional printing press testing. They ran some sheets through just to make sure the ink was adhering properly.
Someone at ComC sent us a lot of 1979 TCMA printing errors. And those cards became so hard to do. We literally threw up our hands and just said, it's a printing error. We're not trying to differentiate whether it's a yellow back or a faded front or a yellow front. We're just saying card number 14 has a printing error and you can sort it out and see which one you want.
The reason we had a good time is because the previous owners that Jake, the new owner, bought from had fallen behind. They had focused on maybe low-hanging fruit, the higher dollar cards, unopened wax, and even that, they were having trouble getting allocations and things like that. So he's bringing some energy to it, and he paid, I think, pretty big bucks for it. But he's going back into the back room, the back office part, which we had at first base back in the day as well. And there's boxes on boxes of collections that were picked up. And that's what this was, because the previous owners, I'm sure, pulled out the huge cards, just like the breakers do, and touted that and sold those off. There weren't that many commons in this dollar box, but inserts, parallels, better players, all these kinds of things. But they had been untouched probably for some number of years, just sitting in the same box in the back. They were untouched, except people had 2 weeks to go through them, and I still found a lot of stuff that was fun for me.
Well, may have picked up some cards that came from me originally. Because the person who owned it before Jake is the person who bought me out in January of 23.
Really?
Yeah, I can recognize my handwriting.
Oh, you're kidding. I did see some boxes that had a recognizable handwriting. Oh, my goodness.
Yes, so I got to visit my cards again, which was cool in some ways.
I found a really cool Columbia card.
Cool.
That I'm saving for you.
Thank you. That probably came from me because when I sold out, I sold him everything I had lying around at home too. A sellout is a sellout because I didn't want to deal with just having my quarter card boxes left.
Okay, this was like a 100-year-old card.
Yeah, it was probably buried in one of my inventory boxes.
Columbia College?
Yeah. I bury stuff like that in my inventory boxes as I play with it.
You're getting it back, Rich.
I'm getting it back.
I'm getting it back.
There is justice.
And you can sell it again. But this, if you do it again, I'll recognize it.
I had a lot of inventory in those days, and I just wanted to clean start.
The other things I asked you, you understand some things I'm looking for. I said, is this better to go there on a Saturday as opposed to going to the show? And you said, go to Nick's. And
yes, I did.
We're correct. Now, the show might have had better stuff, but I've actually normally given the opposite advice, that if people say, what am I going to do on Saturday? Am I going to go to a show with 100 dealers, or am I going to go to a card shop with one dealer? This was a special case. I trusted
me enough to say, Rich is telling me to go here for a reason. And that was good.
Yeah, I sit down, and like I said, if I'm pulling 100 cards an hour, I'm going to keep going. So I was there for 5 hours, and I pulled 500 cards, and it was fun. And then I had to go back because I didn't have it on. I picked an equivalent amount a couple of days ago. I haven't sat in a card shop for 5 hours in a row in a really long time. I'm sure I've done it. I did it when I was co-managing first base, but sitting there going through these cards, but listening to the customers coming in and the courtesy of the employee and the owner and explaining the new regime and the excitement of how he's going to fix it up. It was just a pleasure to be there and be a fly on the wall that this is a card shop that's going to be fully restored, possibly to its former glory, because it needed an active owner that loved the hobby and is really interested in making it go.
Okay, this is now the fourth iteration.
Nick, then Mike, and then these three guys.
No, it was Nick, then Dean. And Dean had done a really good job of keeping a lot of what Nick's had been previously, because he had also been Nick's lawyer, Nick and Debbie's lawyer. So he understood the specialness. Mike did things his way. He paid me what I wanted to buy me out, but I don't think Mike did as good a job with the store as he could. His concept was good, but the execution was lacking.
His execution was great on buying collections, apparently.
Yes.
Buying right is important, but you got to get it back out there. I've talked to Mike Fruitman about this. The Triple Cards family of stores, you're really not supposed to buy collections unless you can get it out and priced, I don't know, about 24 hours, but you can't put it out of sight, out of mind. And that's what this was. Consequently, when I'm looking through it, again, no huge cards, but a lot of good cards. And that's the way I hobby now. And you too.
But here's the other thing. Triple doesn't do it that way. But for example, they will buy certain things. If it's slow in the store and you open some packs and there's something good, they'll just buy it on the spot. Our mutual friend, Rob Vera, stresses in his Instagram videos is Ryan and the buying team are buying cards and they're pricing cards probably 4 to 6 hours a day. They're buying cards for a few hours a day. Then they're pricing cards because they're trying to get new inventory out almost every single day.
Same day. He's buying what's hot. Again, these were buys that were put back because they weren't super hot. They probably pulled out the hot stuff. When you're in the dollar box, a $10 card is a nice buy. But if you're going to sit there and wait for a $100 card, you're going to walk away with no cards, even $50. Your expectation is a $10 card, you pounce on it. A $5 card, you take it. A $2 card, unless you've got some special Columbia connection, you're thinking if you buy a card for $1 and pay 50 cents to put it on ComC, or my lots on eBay are less than 50 cents a card usually for bulk lots. I can't pay $1 and sell something for 50 cents or put it on ComC if it's only going to sell for $2.
And there are times I buy a card for $1 to sell it for $1. Not very often, but I will do that sometimes. Do I want to have this card in my inventory for a reason?
I experimented with team sorting because I usually do alphabetical player sorts, but I had some team, not stars. And I thought, I wonder how long it takes to sort by team. I'll say it takes twice as long to sort baseball by team than it does football or basketball.
Also more cards.
Well, there's more players, more cards, more stuff, but the football was easier to sort. I guess it's team logos and things like that, maybe. But
also in football, in a lot of the sets, you have the same players. The same players show up year after year. In baseball, because the sets are bigger, you have more of a rotating cast of cards.